For years I kept a notebook full of pictures of the things I love. Torn out pages, scraps of paper, wrought iron gauge.
Hey everybody, it's Lynn from A Bit of Birdsong. I've got a new journal available. It is called Wild at Heart, and that is stamped on a tag that's hanging from the safety pin on the outside. There's a tiny little bottle with some dried flowers in it, and then there is sort of an unusual key. I like the way that one's made. They're all hanging on the safety pin, and let me just show you how this works. Let's get right in the center. I don't recommend trying to take these out and put them back in because they are a little bit difficult to get in and out. You can simply unhook it at the top and put things over this. Please don't get stuck. I love using safety pins. This piece of, it's like silk or satin. If it feels sticky, it's because it's got wax on it. It's not anything other than that. And I put a little bit of beeswax on it just in hopes that it would not unravel so much. But if you feel that stickiness, that's what that is. That's beeswax. You can see the stitches where all the signatures were put in with the sewing machine. The cover has got a piece of fabric that's been stained. There is a strip of buttons from a jacket that I purchased simply for the fabric. I loved the fabric in that. There's a butterfly bead on the front. There's a little safety pin. You could actually tuck things in here if you wanted to. It's stitched on this side and at intervals across, but then not right here. So then getting inside of this one is really, it just feels so good to hold. It feels pretty chunky and thick, even though there is a lot more room in here. So you can see how much more space you've got here compared to back here. So you can add to this, you know, and it's not gonna start gaping for a good while. Some of the bulkiness is coming from the fact that all the signatures were put in with denim strips, and that is from an old pair of jeans. There is a pocket that runs all the way across the journal. There are a lot of little fun things in here. There are a couple of beads tied on the hemp cord that's holding that bead into place. This was an old button card, so I just took, it looks like the grommets coming out of that, and that's okay. I mean, this is old to start with. You can move this if you want to. I think it's because this just keeps swinging around on that safety pin. Anyway, no worries there. You can do whatever you want to with this. You could take the grommet out and put some hole reinforcements. That's got a vintage button that I added to the card. I have no idea what was on the original card. Then in the pocket, we've got an old book plate, little piece of scrapbook paper, a pretty piece of wallpaper. This was one of the artist pages from a Stampington magazine, and I just love that. I love the inspiration that you can get from the magazines. So I folded that in half, you know, to cover up the writing on the back, and that is there for inspiration. And then this is an old receipt from 1900, March 10th, 1900, and it is from the Commercial and Farmers Bank. So I think that is very cool, very nice old piece of ephemera. That back down in there. And then in this little pocket, so there are two layers. There's just a dictionary page that has got a couple of birds on it. This flips out. There's some hello. There's some butterfly fabric. We have one of the butterflies that's been stained with alcohol ink. Here is a mushroom bead that's just been put onto a piece of metal wire. I really like that. There's a little bird sketch and painting that I did. That was part of a greeting card, I think, but I love that it's vellum and you can see through that. Piece of old lace trim there, a lot of staining. All of these pages pretty much were taken from my art desk where I work on other projects, and then I end up with this wonderful stained paper that I then turn into art journals. Love the distressing, I love that. I don't know what all ended up on that to make it look like that. Here is a page from an old Time Life book, and that's been stained. I will tell you, a lot of the distressing and staining in this was done with the imitation vanilla extract. So this book does have a pretty strong scent of vanilla. It's not overpowering. I love it, but you just need to be aware of that. That was off of the cover of a book I found at the thrift store. I'm probably going to read the book, actually, but I just took the cover off. I was inspired by the painting on the book jacket. These little cards are neat. I come across these from time to time. I don't really know where they come from originally, like if that's part of a set, but I stained that. That's enchanted haricot vert, green beans with sweet onions. So that's really cute. I wanted this journal, since it's called Wild at Heart, to feel like almost like a caravan, like a nomad sort of traveling, adventurous, you know, just bringing in images and ideas of being wild at heart. That's an old piece of trim that I had in my box of trims, and I've just been wanting to use that on something. I just safety pinned it into this strip of fabric here, and I love that you can use the strips like that. This is a really cool image. That's out of a book I have that I pull from. It's not an old, well, it's not an antique book. It's got images of Santa Fe houses and decor, and I just loved this. That page you can see has a lot of distressing from being on my art desk. This is a page from a kit that I did a while back when I was working on some boho journals, and I don't know that gypsy is an appropriate word anymore. I try not to use it. I think it's a beautiful word. Anytime I've ever said it or read it or thought it, I've always thought beauty, adventure, silks, satins, traveling caravans, and I feel like that adventuresome spirit is something to me that I think of when I think of gypsy. So, you know, I don't know if you want to share your thoughts on that word, please do so. I would love to hear what everyone thinks about that. But I do try to be and live in such a way where I'm not using anything that's offensive to anyone. Here is another old book page from the Old Time Life book. See a little bird stamped there. This has got paint stains and it's very textured. So you can glue over the top, you can collage over the top, you could add gesso, just do whatever you want to. There's a piece of fabric that I thought was kind of boho. Beautiful. It reminded me of feathers a little bit and dream catchers. That might be what that is. So I just put that in with a safety pin. More really distressed paper, and there's a lot of room for you to work here. There is a brass tag that says 68. Here is one of the pieces of photograph paper that I stamped on with the alcohol ink. You can see where I was testing out some mermaid stamps and cleaning those up. And then here is a feather from my mom's farm. It says guinea feathers here. There are actually two. Beautiful feathers. I have started just putting these straight into the envelopes so that you don't have to handle them. You know, you're supposed to wash your hands after handling feathers because of bird transmitted illnesses. My mother's had a farm for 30 years and she's kept guineas and chickens and turkeys. She is so careful. And, you know, we are too when we go out there. We've never had any problems, but I think it feels more comfortable to the recipient to have it already packaged up where you don't even have to handle the feather. And that's a pretty piece of fabric. So let's take this safety pin out. It's easier to get those safety pins in and out inside the journal. I think that's pretty. That was just a sample of fabric that I had in my stash. In fact, you can see the hole punched where it was on a sample card. I would have saved the sample card for you had it been attractive, but I just didn't really care for the looks of it, nor the weight or the paper or anything like that. This was from a greeting card. It's been distressed on the back. It looks like a little traveling mini house. It's probably a garden shed. I love the way that looks, so I distressed it and included that. And that's from my art desk, you can tell. Again, you could gesso over all of this with white or black gesso and just start over. Here's the art journal page we did, I believe, last week. I am at peace and in pieces. And I need to write that quote in my art journal. I was gonna put this whole thing in there, but then I just wanted to put it in this book. Here's an old library card that says Nature Study. Looks like that's originally from a book from 1842. The card's not that old, but the book that was housed in the library was that old. And then this is from a bag of milk chocolate pretzels. I just love that name, Asher, and I love the looks of that. Family owned since 1892. Love putting things like that in journals. Here again is another piece of that kit that I did a while back, Speak Your Truth, and you can see the raven or the crow there, and that is just sitting under this Tim Holtz clip. This is a vintage, well, I printed it, but that's of a vintage painting. I think it's called Gypsy Woman or Gypsy Lady. I'll have to look again. Here's just a little fabric tab that is sewn onto that page. You could hang something from that. And this is an old piece of ephemera, Boys Town of Costa Rica. That's El Paso, Texas. And then on the inside, we just have a stamped image that's faded, and I sewed that onto some like wax paper or I don't think that's parchment paper. It's not quite that heavy, and that is just sitting in here. I just like little oddities and curiosities. Here is part of a file, an index divider. That was used with the little 45 record albums. You see those from time to time in thrift stores, the boxes that housed the little records, and it'll have these index cards, which are really fun to use. I love this raised area here. More paper from my art desk. And then here's a picture of Geronimo. I love that image. He's kneeling there and holding his gun, and that's just a really, really sad time to read about. And it is I think every century since the beginning of time has been a mix of blessings and curses, and it's just, we all have to be what we want to see in the world. I love this old image that was printed out on my printer. I love mushrooms, and that one's just stained. You can see where the ink runs through, it gets hit with water and then dries. I love that. A really messy page. Again, you can gesso over that. You can leave it like it is. You can paint over it with acrylic paint. And let's see, this is from a vintage book, The King's Kitchen. And that is from an old pack of, it says Diamond Puzzle. I never saw what was in it. It looked to me like it held playing cards. And then I love this book page that says Bird Song. I definitely feel like birds are sort of wild at heart, so I like that bird page, book page. That's there. And then there's another little pocket here. And this is just a card. It's got ribbon on it. It says Pure Silk. So I stained that up a little bit. And then on the back, there's my stamp. You can see this fabric is kind of stained and distressed. Several layers of fabric on here. I love this. It's got a little bit of gesso on it or white paint, but that's from an old, was that a curtain, I think, that had the little raised crocheted areas. So that is currently available. Thank you so much for watching. I will be back really soon with some more journals. Bye for now.